Oh, hi. I am so sorry. I just had to send a really important message. I had to send it. My daughter needs something from Amazon for school for tomorrow. I found an amazing vacation place. Don't worry, I saved it. And I found the most amazing meditation meme that I just want to read to you guys. It's so meaningful. I forgot to send the message. I totally forgot to send the message. Just, do you mind to wait 1 second? I'm so sorry. Wow. That is where I am most of the time. Everywhere and nowhere, all at once. I've always wondered why Hashem chose to infuse his breath into Adam to give him life. Why didn't Hashem jumpstart his heart and give him a pulse? Why didn't Hashem infuse him with blood with a transfusion? Why was it breath that gave man life? I'd like to invite everyone in this room to take a moment to pause with me. I'm really not here, and I'd like to be. So I'm going to take a deep breath before I continue. Feel free to close your eyes. I'm going to do that again. A few weeks ago, I got a call from Simcha Minkowitz. She said to me, Simi, there is a huge problem in Crown Heights. Our teenagers and our children are suffering. We can't see it. It's invisible, but they're really struggling. We know we can't get rid of the problem, but we're really trying to do tiny things to make a real, legitimate shift. We're doing our best to try and help them. Will you speak at our next event? Wait, in my mind I said, Simcha, are you sure you have the right number? There is a mental health crisis in our schools, and I was about to give a speech. So I did what any diligent person would do when they're about to give a speech on a topic they know nothing about. I rolled up my sleeves, and I commenced my research. The first thing I did was look online. I typed in smartphone effect on youth mental health. And the first summary that came up, those first few lines that seemed to be Google's definition of what you're looking for, gave me this. Results: depression, anxiety, OCD, ADHD, and alcohol use disorder. Excessive smartphone use is associated with difficulties in cognitive emotion regulation, impulsivity, impaired cognitive function, addiction to social networking, shyness, and low self-esteem. That was just the beginning. I reached out to parents who have teenagers that are struggling with emotional and mental health, who are afraid of how the smartphone will continue to harm their children because they have seen the harm that the smartphone has already done. Taking it away is almost impossible. Who shared that it did not start that way. It was just relaxation, a release, a reward, just like everybody else's kids, until it wasn't. I read evidence that found that when young people use social media, it affects their sense of self. Those that spend time on social apps were more likely to feel envious of others and worse about themselves in a very real way. And studies that report a more negative mood just after 10 minutes of browsing on Instagram and Facebook. The studies were endless, the statistics were infinite, and quite frankly, I could not fathom what I was reading. I had no idea about how I was going to write this speech. But I sat down anyway, and I attempted to gather and make sense of all the information I was reading and hearing. And to be honest, I was completely and utterly overwhelmed. And then it hit me. I am the research. I wasn't asked to speak tonight because I have a PhD. I wasn't asked to share the latest data from Psychology Today. I wasn't asked to compile and prepare a report. I am the research. I am the adult version of that young girl who just doesn't feel good after they don't get enough likes on Instagram, who doubts myself because it feels like those likes did too. I am the adult who instinctively grabs my phone the moment my kids go to sleep because God forbid I should be bored, unstimulated, or just sit with my thoughts for even 1 minute. And don't worry, I have checked it during bedtime too, maybe to escape. I am the woman who finds it impossible to just put it away. So I closed up all the research I had found, just like that. Because my practice of waking up and going to sleep, so dependent and deeply connected to this thing, is really the only research that I can speak of. It's really the only research that I can share from my heart, and probably because my story is so similar to so many others. I have no desire to stand up here tonight and preach about just how bad smartphones are for our children, to tell you that our kids are far better off without them, and to submit, probably in agreement with most of you, that it feels somewhat inevitable. If for no one else, this speech is just for me, and hopefully for my children. My 10-year-old has been asking for a phone for the last 3 years, and the first time when she broached the subject, I instinctively just blurted out, 16. 16 is the golden year in my house. Pool, dog, smartphone. 16 is going to be a great year. Everyone is invited. I wish I would have said 18. Although for me, tonight is not about banishing technology, getting rid of the problem, or hiding my daughter in a room till I feel like she can safely maneuver the internet. I still struggle to safely maneuver the internet, to set boundaries, limits, filter what I see and read, what floods my feed. For me, tonight is about learning a new language so the evils of social media don't become the only one. It's about understanding that a lot of the emotional and mental health challenges are exacerbated by social media. It's about knowing that teenagers, young teenagers in our high schools that are cutting themselves, those who struggle with eating disorders, are flooded and supported with the same content the algorithm continues to feed them. It's about knowing that online bullying is real and happens to our children in 5th grade. Tonight is about giving ourselves tools so we can help our children have access and practice with safety and intention. It's about learning that even though as parents there is a certain level of surrendering that we have to do, we still can model choices. Why do I think I can successfully limit my child's usage when they have no concept of me limiting mine? What am I doing that shows I am sensitive about how I use my time? Aside from Shabbos, do I have times and spaces that are technology-free? If I can successfully spend more time off my phone and devote that time into building a relationship with my daughter, when she does see something scary or inappropriate or confusing on social media, I'm the one that she comes to. Tonight is about delaying as much as possible. It's about coming together to support each other, making shifts while we navigate this really confusing and difficult topic. It's been just over a month now since my sister and Chaya made a really big decision to pull back from social media, to take a step back from our platform, The Frock. From the moment Shabbos came out to the moment Shabbos came in, I was here. There were so many reasons that eventually snowballed us into making this decision, and ultimately, now it's been a month, it has been one of the hardest and best decisions I have ever made in my entire life. For the last decade, together with Chaya, we created and built a successful brand and social media platform. Thank you. Like everybody else, we ran in the hustle culture race. We juggled being a wife, a mother, and a CEO. There were so many times you saw us, we felt like queens of social media, and other times we just felt like we were drowning. But they balanced each other out. So we kept on hustling and it kept on feeding us until it became too much. I spent the last 2 years behind social media, feeling like I couldn't cope. And yet every single day I showed up and no one had a clue. Chaya and I knew that if we were to ever fill this space again in the way that we love and want to, we needed to take a step back and unlearn things that we were getting wrong about it. The dependency on it, the fear of not being on it, the feelings of less than, the constant pressure to show up. We were finally able to distinguish what was actually harmful. Because there really was, and still is, so much good. The community, the connections, the people we met, the shared stories, each of them real. They're all real, and they all changed my life for the better. 4 years ago, when my late husband Shua passed away, social media is what galvanized a community to come together and raise tzedakah for my family. Social media became a platform where I could really wear my grief on my sleeve. If not for social media, I would not be here in the way that I am today. Unfortunately, though, the power struggle is not an even playing field. Children and teenagers are not able to outweigh the good of social media versus the bad. It took Chaya and I, mature, grown adults, who can control what we see, who can make cognitive choices, 2 years to pull away from our phones. When you're a teenager, you actually cannot do it. The phone doesn't leave room for feelings, for a sense of self. It becomes an escape. The phone becomes a crutch to deal with our emotional hurt, so we can hide behind it, pull it out when we're stressed. How are we supposed to pull back? How are our children supposed to pull back, set limits, dismiss what's not healthy, when it is so hard for us? The first time I sat down to write this speech, and still now, the irony of it is uncanny and also really deeply sentimental. Not because I was the research or am, but because me being the research is ongoing. 8 years ago, my late husband Shua began writing his thesis for his PhD, which I received 4 years ago on his behalf. The topic of his dissertation was the impact of smartphone use on relationship satisfaction. As I read through his paper, it was very confronting to read that the findings and numbers have become exponentially worse. Have we considered that our phone usage is a huge contributing factor to the disconnect we feel with our spouse? A dear friend, mentor, and teacher, Yocheved Saidoff, taught me, we don't inherit the burdens of a life left unlived, only the opportunities of roads still meant to be traveled. That is my honor tonight. On my final research stint, I reached out to Rabbi Remy Garari, Yocheved's father. It was Yocheved's yahrzeit a few weeks ago. He shared with me stories and wisdom based with love and on Torah. And if you haven't yet heard his podcast or his talks, I highly recommend you listening to them, where he talks about them and shares about this topic in greater depth. As I drove home, I was so deep in thought and sadness, but one idea kept coming to the forefront of my mind. When we start using Facebook and Instagram, we sign an invisible non-compete pact. No amount of love or stability can compete with what Facebook and Instagram have to offer. They are designed to win. Does that mean we've already lost? That there's nothing that we can do about it? No. That's why we're all here. There's plenty to do. It doesn't mean it's not hard, confusing, or difficult. It means that when my daughter begs me for a smartphone, I will not cave for fear of her not having friends. I want her to have a life. It means that even though sometimes I assume or I'm lazy and tired that she can handle it, I have to remind myself that inside their brains, cognitively, they just can't. I'm so grateful to the mothers who started the technology pact in my daughter's class. You started me on this train. The guidance and support from each other is the fuel we really need to make the ride safer, stronger, and healthier for our families. The Rebbe always said that in a room full of Hasidim, it's a Farbrengen, and we know that at every Farbrengen, we end with Hachlata. My heart feels open, and it feels like everyone here is too. And this feels like it's been an epic, deep, jarring Farbrengen. I'm going to take a risk now by saying something that I have failed at for so many years. And tonight, as I rode here in the Uber, I was like, don't say it, don't do it, you can't do it. And when I read the speech to my husband, he's like, are you sure you're ready for that? And I'm like, no, I'm actually not ready for this at all, but that's why I'm doing it. I'm going to say it out loud with all of you as my witness, and I will not have Instagram to document it. So you're just going to have to trust me. Every day, for the sake of my family, for the sake of my marriage, and for the sake of my mental health, from 4 to 6 p.m., I'm going to lock my phone away. No going back. I need to do this for me, for my children. It may look very different to you. What is everyone in this room going to do tonight? Even though this speech was really just for me, maybe it can be for us. Maybe it can be for our children. I'd like to thank the women, the mothers, the masterminds, of this organization for trusting me to share of myself, for really making it clear just how serious this topic really is. With Hashem's help, the Rebbe's guidance, and your determination, we really can give ourselves and our children a better chance. Thank you.